Good afternoon. I am so pleased that I am the one who gets to present the NCRR Fighting Spirit Award to Lillian Nakano. I've had the great fortune of knowing Lillian from various vantage points, and so I know how deserving she is of this special award. Lillian has always been a fighter for social justice, for treating people with the respect and dignity that they deserve. She spoke out for people who might otherwise not have a voice. But she felt that it was even more important to help them to speak for themselves.
She unfortunately couldn't be here today because she had surgery to remove a small lung cancer. Surgery went smoothly, so we're all hopeful that that'll take care of it. You know, when it first started, there were just a few people who were involved in the late 70s in trying to revive the effort for redress, which, of course, had been attempted before. And so there'd be a few of her and other people would set up literature tables at different events or here in the community, pass out educational materials, try to get people signed up to get involved. And so literature tables grew into meetings, grew into conferences, eventually marches and rallies, and then to the thousands of people that came out to the commission hearings. And that movement pulled off a pretty amazing thing in getting the US government to actually acknowledge the wrong it had done and to provide reparations to those who had gone through that whole experience.
Who were the Ishii? Someone I interviewed years ago talking about his parents. He said, they and people like them were the only American immigrants who ever had to immigrate twice. They had to immigrate to America, and then they were deported out of America while being kept in America, because those camps were in America. And then they had to immigrate back.
On December 7th, 1941, when Pearl Harbor was bombed by the Japanese Imperial Navy, the FBI came to my grandfather's house. When he came home, they took him into custody. Then my grandfather went on the incarceration odyssey. Missoula, Montana, Fort Sill, Oklahoma, Santa Fe, New Mexico, Crystal City, Texas. Never charged with a crime. Never able to defend himself in court. He remained a prisoner until 1946. My dad said they just had a hearing and said, you could go. No explanation, no apology, get out.
When the planes crash into buildings, my parents sit mute and I take my siblings upstairs. My dad has a new set of rules. No Muslim Student Association meetings, he yells. I didn't believe it was that bad until they called several Pakistani male nationals to register with the newly named CIS. My father was detained and came back 12 hours later in a cab. He was questioned over and over and over with every media blast about violence, about Muslims, about Muslim countries. My parents become more and more silent, their faces more grave.
Yeah, the blood thick, and that ain't gonna change. With all these cultures running through my veins, I'm black, I'm white, I'm brown, I'm yellow, I'm red with the anger, so you know I'm gonna tell them. Teach my kids where they come from and how they native tongue sound like a drum.
During World War II, about 112,000 Japanese Americans were interned. They were sent to different internment camps across the western half of the United States. But what is actually a little known fact is that about 2,200 Japanese Latin Americans were also uprooted. They were not actually American citizens. They were of Latin American descent, and they were in countries like Peru. And they were actually kidnapped from their areas and taken to kind of a separate camp system called the Justice Camp System. That's where areas like Crystal City, Texas. And so they, one can actually say that their experience was a lot worse than Japanese Americans. They did have a court case, Mochizuki versus the United States, I believe, where they received a settlement of 5,000, but as we know, that's 15,000 less than other Japanese Americans. And so there is actually an ongoing struggle to get comparable redress for this community.
You should have seen the faces of members of Congress and their staffers when last year the CARE staff went on to lobby on the HR 42 on behalf of Japanese of Latin American background. The first question was, are you Latino or Japanese? said none of the above, but we felt it's an important issue to lobby on, and we really went visiting one congressperson after the other. Actually, today, the Japanese American community is at the forefront, pioneering in defending civil rights for all Americans. This is something that you might take it for granted, but for us as Muslims today who are facing those violations, it means a lot to us.
Right now, we are advocating for the DREAM Act that is going to be reintroduced in March. The DREAM Act is a bill that, if passed, would allow the students, the 8540 undocumented students and undocumented students across the nation who are struggling to go through college, paying out of their own pocket, commuting for 2 hours, working 3 jobs just to pay for that education to make their dreams a reality. It would allow them a path to legalization after graduating, which would then allow them to work in the community, because currently they graduate after all their struggles, but what do they do with their degree when they have no papers?